Hi y'all, welcome to episode 7 of Stay Classy and Choose Love. Hope you all had a really good week, a great 4th of July, 250th birthday for this great nation that we call the United States of America. Mine was interesting, kind of a bust. I was traveling down to Tulsa to do a couple of Folds of Honor events. I was supposed to have like a live interview Saturday morning with Dan Rooney, our founder, and the Weatherman people that do this really great umbrella for Folds. That got canceled. Well, it got canceled for me. The bit was reduced in its size, and so they just wanted Dan, which was fine. He's the most phenomenal speaker I've ever met, so he can always represent Folds of Honor instead of me. He does a great job. But then that night we were supposed to go to the Folds of Honor Freedom Festival sponsored by Quick Trip on the river in Tulsa. This really cool free event for the public that Quick Trip sponsors that has like live music and bounce houses and BMX bike demonstrations, all this really cool stuff. And then we're going to do this whole like show where I was supposed to like tell my story and the honor guard, anyways. Tulsa got a huge severe weather event Saturday night on the 4th of July. It was wild to watch this move in. So everything got shortened. I think I spoke for less than 2 minutes, which is probably a record for me. I know you're shocked because I have such a hard time talking for nonstop, right? Just kidding. And then it just poured and gusts of wind. Like I was trying to drive back to the hotel and like literally it was like debris. It was wild. Like Kansas City has severe weather, but this was intense. So 4th of July was kind of a bust. Got back yesterday and I feel like I'm at that stage of life where I really miss home when I travel. Even if I travel somewhere really cool and nice, it's just always nice to come home, right? So anyways, got back yesterday and it's Monday. I woke up early. Everett had 7 a.m. swim practice that I had to drive him to, and I'm in hat and no makeup mom mode. So it's Monday this week. I'm excited about because I feel like in anticipating the week, it should just be calmer. That extreme heat that was so oppressive last week has broken. Everett has a golf tournament tomorrow, which will be great. A swim meet Thursday. Get to hang out with some friends Saturday night. So just calm, which I need. Life is it's just been chaotic. So I'm excited about it. I think it should be good. It also dawned on me while I was driving to and from Tulsa that it's July and I start my new job in less than a month. August 3rd is my start date. I'm getting really excited. I've been working on this reentry course online that I think is just like, it is amazing to me how much I am enjoying learning right now. I think, when you're going through college, you just get so burnt out in some ways. People that do really long education tracks like doctors and things of that sort of, just hats off to you for that commitment. But anyways, I am hoping to spend some more time in that course this week. I'm also feeling nervous, but like good nerves, if that makes sense. It's nothing new. I'm going to have a lot to learn, so I'm excited. My scrubs came in the mail this week. I haven't tried them on yet, but I'm just getting really excited. So I just want to pause for a second and talk about how good doing this podcast has been for that emotional awakening of mine. I've always wanted to really tell my story, but I think there has been something really grounding for me in coming back and thinking about all these different eras of my life and remembering stories that I had forgotten. I had the best conversation last week with my friend Adam after last week's podcast where I keep telling him I need to bring him on because he'll call after an episode and be like, do you remember this and this? I'm like, no, I had totally forgotten. And there's just been something good in my heart about this stirring of memories. And I appreciate you guys letting me share them with you and just continuing to show love and support. So just wanted to say all that. Really do. People are good. And I have been so blessed with good people in my life. So let me pick the story back up. I ended last week that Jeremy and I had moved down to Savannah. Our moms had left and we got our strawberry milkshakes and now it was time for us to figure out life. I think it's just important to point out our age. Jeremy and I were both 20 years old at this point. We were such babies, and we'd moved halfway across the country from family and friends and support and anything of that sort. Jeremy was an E3 at this time in the military, so private first class, and he made very little money, like very little money. Like I want to say it was around like $2,000 a month, if even that. And that was like with his housing allowance, maybe $2,500. I don't really remember, but it was very little money. And in our sweet naiveness of 20 years old, I remember sitting down and like doing a budget and thinking like, here was rent, here was the car payment we had, here was car insurance, here's our utilities. And like, we had like, I don't know, a couple $100 left over to spend, and being like, oh, we'll be fine. That's plenty of money. Oh my gosh, y'all, it was not plenty of money. I will say like one of the biggest awakenings to adulthood that Jeremy and I had that summer was learning how to manage our finances. And Jeremy and I had grown up in very different, not like financial status households, but just how money was handled. Jeremy's parents, I don't know, he just had never, I don't know how to explain it, because they're great people and I don't think they necessarily did anything wrong, but they hadn't necessarily taught Jeremy financial responsibility, like how to save or really manage a budget or stretch money out, things of that sort. Whereas I came from like a really financially aware and frugal family. We both came from households that had 4 children, but like my family, like we rarely ate out at a restaurant because that was just really expensive with 4 kids, right? If we ate in a restaurant, we ordered cheap things off the menu. Whereas like Jeremy's family, I don't want to say would eat out often, but it was more common. And then there was no like stipulations on what you had to order. Like I remember that first summer, if we went out to eat anywhere, Jeremy would order a half rack of ribs. And at some point I had to be like, hey man, first off, we're in Savannah, Georgia, which like has some of the best seafood in the nation, in my opinion. There's great seafood in lots of places, but like all this great food and you're ordering the same thing every time. And B, we can't afford for you to eat a half rack of ribs every time we go out to dinner. just different financial mindsets, right? And I think, you know, moving down there, Jeremy was so focused on learning how to be a great Army Ranger that was kind of the only place that his mind ever really went. Whereas like I'm all of a sudden finding this responsibility of like managing our finances and managing our household, and it just kind of naturally fell on my shoulders to be the one in charge of all of that, which was an interesting division in some ways because Jeremy was the one making the money, and it felt like, and I'll talk about this more I think next week, but it felt like he was making the money and I was the one spending the money in some ways, and I feel like some people will hear that and cringe, and I just want you to like pause on that for a minute and let me kind of like talk more about it. But so that was tricky. The finances was a big piece. I think the other piece of it was like Jeremy was loving what he was doing, right? Like work for him was literally going to base and practicing being an Army Ranger. It was hard and then challenging in the way that like he had to, like land nav and shooting targets, but like also all the things that he loved, right? Like he loved it. Whereas I, on the flip side, moved down there and I was waitlisted to start a nursing school. I wasn't going to start in the fall, which was kind of a big blow. I didn't have any friends. Katie was still down in Florida finishing her college degree, and Jeremy was at the bottom of the hierarchy, so none of the guys that he mingled with were married. A lot of the married guys just were higher ranking, and that I don't know, Jeremy just didn't hang out with those guys. Like that hierarchy was real when Jeremy got to battalion. There's a word for it and I can't think of it right now. It'll probably come to me in the middle of the night. But So I was really lonely. I remember we would host a lot of the guys over that were around him a lot of the times. We were both still 20, so we didn't go out a whole lot. A, we couldn't afford it, and B, I was still worried about being arrested again. So we didn't go out a whole lot. And I was so bored and lonely and lost. And so I decided that summer that what I was going to do with my time was I was going to learn how to cook. So Jeremy, because I felt like that was part of my responsibility, was to be making dinner every night. It's just the households that we were raised in. And it was such a great thing for me to focus on. So my mom was a fantastic cook, but she also worked full time. She was a school teacher. And then my dad was a pilot, so he was gone all the time. So my mom was managing the household by herself, often. So my mom was a cook of practicality and convenience, which I thought she was a great cook. Whereas Jeremy's mom stayed at home with the boys. She lifeguarded for a while there to keep herself busy, but cooking is and was one of Peggy's absolute favorite things to do. Experimenting in the kitchen, trying things out, that's just what Peggy does. She also cooks almost everything from scratch, which my mother did not. So makes me think that I think a great story to just show the difference in our households was one night early, those first couple weeks that we were living together, I made something for dinner. And I served instant mashed potatoes as one of our sides. I loved instant mashed potatoes. In fact, I don't think at that stage of my life I had homemade mashed potatoes if we weren't in a restaurant, which even then we didn't eat out a lot. So I might not have ever had homemade mashed potatoes at that point in my life. Just keep in mind the whole thing that my family was not food adventurous, which might be why I love being adventurous with food now, right? I hadn't had capers until Jeremy and I's first date. But so I served instant mashed potatoes. I remember Jeremy taking a bite of these instant mashed potatoes and looking at me and being like, "What is this?" And I said, "They're mashed potatoes." And he said, "Most definitely not. Show me." I showed him the box. He just starts laughing. And he's like, "These are not mashed potatoes." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "My mom always just made mashed potatoes." I said, from boiling potatoes and making homemade mashed potatoes? And he's like, "Yeah." Mind blown. So I decided that summer that I was going to learn how to cook. Challenge accepted. Fine, your mom was a great cook. I'm going to learn how to be an even better cook. I'm not a better cook than Peggy, but I do love to cook. And to be honest, it is still my creative space, is the kitchen. There's few things I enjoy as much as cooking a really good meal and enjoying it with family and friends. So anyways, the first time I attempted to make mashed potatoes, this is such a good learning experience for me, right? So I read the recipe, and this is I think it's kind of hard to understand how much things have changed in the past 20 years, just accessibility to recipes and cooking videos and things of that sort. I would literally watch cooking shows, but there was no streaming of TV, and so I couldn't Google for a video on how to make mashed potatoes yet. That just wasn't a way. I could Google a recipe, but I don't feel like videos were a big piece of it. Anyways, so I found recipes, did a lot of reading to try to figure it out. And so at this point in my life, I really was kind of a rule follower, and following recipes was a part of that. And so I think the recipe said, quarter the potatoes, put them in the pot and boil them for 12 minutes, right? So I do it. I follow the recipe. I drain the potatoes. I put them in a bowl. Here was the other thing. Our kitchen in our apartment was tiny. It was a galley kitchen that maybe 2-3 people could fit in, minimal workspace, and we had minimal equipment. There was no KitchenAid mixer. I didn't have numerous bowls. We had just gotten married in a rush, and our registry was about basic needs. So I put them in a bowl. The bowl probably wasn't big enough. And I go to mix it with like a hand mixer, which Jeremy even gave me a hard time about that because I think his mom would like actually mash the mashed potatoes. And I said, listen, the recipes all say to use a mixer. I'm using a mixer. And I go to mix the potatoes. They're not cooked. They're not boiled enough. And literally potato pieces just go flying all around the kitchen. And I, at this point, am committed and I am going to make these potatoes work. And so I am like adding more milk and just, and Jeremy just looked at me and was like, that's not how my mom does it. Oh. We're laughing. Like, I'm really not mad. Like, at this point, I just can't believe what's happening. And finally, I throw in the towel. The kitchen's destroyed. I looked at Jeremy and I was like, go get some frozen pizzas. We had a lot of frozen pizza that summer. We had a grocery store like right across the street behind the Sonic. And so he went and grabbed some pizzas. And while he did that, I cleaned up the kitchen. I would like you to know I am excellent at making mashed potatoes now. They are actually one of my favorite Thanksgiving sides to make because I love homemade mashed potatoes. But the thing about it that I learned that summer and why I think I enjoy cooking is because being such a rule follower, cooking is that time when you shouldn't always follow the rules, right? Like there has to be a part of you that can adjust and taste and like just use your common sense, right? Like sure, the recipe said boil them for this amount of time, but potatoes vary in size, vary in texture, like all the things, right? And so you should test the potato by sticking a fork in it to make sure it's actually boiled all the way through before you try to mash them. Lesson learned. Oh, that's another cooking one that kind of cracks me up because so not food adventurous for me. I was almost like ignorant to lots of foods at this point in my life. And I remember Peggy had sent me a great cookbook that I was trying to like cook through different recipes. And I think I was making like grilled chicken with pesto and something blah, blah, blah. I didn't like homemade pesto. I didn't know what pesto was. I didn't know. And Jeremy didn't either, really. And so, like, you think about pesto being this green glob of just yummy deliciousness when spread over chicken with some roasted tomatoes and mozzarella. So good. I'm craving that now. But I like put all the things in the blender, olive oil and basil and the garlic and the things, and I blend it all up. And Jeremy comes in the kitchen. He's like, "Are you making baby food?" No. And I remember both of us just looking. I mean, it looked so nasty. Neither of us would try it. I bet it would have been excellent if I had even just known what pesto was. It was another frozen pizza night. Anyways, we had a lot to learn. But part of that, so cooking had kind of become my distraction while Jeremy was very focused on being in the military. And so one of the things that we really needed to learn how to do well was talk about money that year. And honestly, we didn't get good at it for quite a bit longer in our relationship because we were on this tight budget. So I would like do this meal planning, have a grocery list, and go and like spend a lot of money on groceries. And he would have left that day thinking he had X amount of money in the checking account. And then he goes to the gas station and buys a can of Copenhagen and a Gatorade, and his transaction is the one that would like send us into the red and overdraw our checking account. Which like then I would get mad at him, and I'm gonna dive into this next week, but there's just this piece where it was like we just had so much to learn, and the money piece was hard because that was stressful because we were living below the poverty line. We just were ignorant to it, and there's just for numerous times. We had so much to learn. So we got through it. We would get better at communicating. We got better at managing money. We also got a dog that summer. So both of us were huge dog people. I, to this day, am a huge dog person. Like my dog is literally right here at my feet, my copper dog. And within those first couple weeks, I got a dog. Jeremy had wanted a boxer. I wanted a Shih Tzu. Those are both the type of dogs that we had grown up with, but I kind of won that because of a couple reasons. I was nervous because boxers were bigger dogs. I had grown up with small dogs, and I was worried about having a big dog that I couldn't control when he was deployed. I was like, you're going to be gone all the time. Like, this needs to be a dog that I can handle, that I'm comfortable with. And he's like, yeah, no, you're right. You're totally right. So we got Rex. Jeremy actually named him. He was a Shih Tzu, 12-pound Shih Tzu, and Rex was the best dog. Oh, he was such a good dog. I had Rex for 12 and a half years, and I still think about it. He was the most constant thing in my life at that point, like for those 12 years. There was just so much happening, and Rex was my constant. Which was fun. So we got a puppy together, which was also like a little stressful, right? Like potty training in an apartment and all that. We just had to learn how to be responsible. So 2 20-year-olds far away from home, just figuring it out. It was interesting because that summer I was really lonely. Like, technology is not what it was today. So like keeping in touch with my friends, there was no texting, there was no social media, there's no Snapchat. Like you actually had to like call each other, which I feel like was decent at the start of it, but then we just learned that we were in different phases of the life too, right? Like what we could talk about was getting more and more different. So I was lonely. I was really lonely. Jeremy was kind of my whole world at that point. Which I don't think in a relationship your person should ever be your whole world. Like, that's a lot to expect from the other person. And when that's like your only real source of happiness, I think you lose yourself a little bit. You lose your ability to make yourself happy. Which that soapbox kind of came from nowhere, but I could, and the back of both of our minds, right? So I think I moved down there in June, and we knew Jeremy was going to deploy again in like October-ish, which we knew he was going to miss our first Christmas together. Like, we knew all of this. And it was hard. There was so much unknown about it. And I think this was the start where I don't think I had the wisdom at the time, but later I could, in a couple of years, I was able to identify that kind of this pattern that would happen right before a deployment. So we had like this great summer, challenging for sure, but we were just so happy to be together that, it was just good. But as it got closer to his deployment, this emotional divide would happen with every deployment. The final one was a little different, but I'll talk about that later. But I got really emotionally needy. So there's this piece where it's like, I'm getting ready to send you off to war. I'm getting ready to do all these things. You're my world, and I'm about to lose you. Whereas he is getting ready to do the thing that he has been training to do for over a year now, that he is excited. He is like ready for it. He's kind of chomping at the bit for his opportunity to like go be an Army Ranger in the real setting. So he's excited, right? Like, maybe a little bit nervous, but like for the most part, I think excitement would have been his emotion. Which those two things don't necessarily align with each other. So like, I'm getting needy. He's kind of emotionally checking out a little bit, which I could see. And I don't think we butted heads really bad before that first deployment. It just was an interesting like start to it. And then, I talked about how there's no big welcome home ceremonies for Ranger Battalion. There's also no big elaborate goodbye ceremonies. So you just like drop him off most of the time in the middle of the night and say, I'll see you in a few months. Call me when you can. But that first one particularly was interesting because I went to go drop him off. I'm pretty sure we had dinner at Olive Garden that night because it was our spot. Freaking still love me some Olive Garden. It was affordable for 2 broke kids, but still felt nice, right? Like, and they didn't have ribs, so that was good for our budget. But so we I go to drop him off, and, you know, at this time, it's very different right now, but like they still function out of the Ranger barracks, which have all been torn down at this point. They got torn down a couple of years later, but, and I'm pretty sure there was like a squad room in the barracks, and that's like, we were like hanging out, and some of the wives and families that were there with the higher ranking people were all there, and we're all like waiting for the like go, like it's time to load up. The plane was broken. So we're like waiting, and then, which was like a little nerve wracking. And then all of a sudden they come in, they're like, go home. Plane's not gonna be fixed until tomorrow. What? What do you mean? This huge emotional event that I've been like dreading, counting down for, it's almost like I just needed it to happen, right? Like, I'm dropping, like, but it didn't, which was like a relief, but also like, I don't know. So Jeremy and I went home, and I remember we took a bath together, which is something that we would just do often. It's just like our apartment, we had like a big soaking tub. So we got in the tub, and, we had a couple beers, which he probably shouldn't have done. And yes, we were only 20, but, then he got the phone call that like, just kidding. The plane has been fixed and you need to come back. Whoops, he definitely shouldn't have had those beers. Can't get in trouble for it now though. So, he, you know, I take him and drop him off, and off he goes for his first deployment. And what I remember was just being an absolute mess, like emotional mess. Like my whole world had just left. He went to go fight a war. I was so scared. I was so nervous about his safety and what that would look like. And was he going to come back from fighting the war and be a different person? Who was he going to be? Like, yada, yada, yada. And this is where I figured out kind of the emotional roller coaster of this like pre-deployment, deployment, like just the emotions of being a military spouse. So I feel like when you drop your husband off to go fight a war, there is a small part of you that almost like goes through the grieving process. Like you grieve all that normalcy that we had established that summer. And all of a sudden I had to like figure it all out in a different way. And I missed him so much. Like my heart literally hurt. I couldn't do things. Like I went to go do the laundry the first time after he deployed, and like his dirty clothes were in there. I'm just sobbing, just smelling them and sobbing and being like, oh my God. And, I think I was such a mess that I remember his parents called, or I called his parents, and I think they were worried about me. And, Peggy actually flew down to Savannah to spend a couple days with me, which was, his family has been so great over the years, but, and my parents were still working, so they didn't have that freedom. But Peggy flew down, and just kind of like, I think it just was a good distraction. You know, we did some sightseeing and did some things, and she taught me some recipes to cook, and taught me how to knit. I don't remember how to knit anymore, but it was just good. It was good. And then I came up with a plan. I don't remember if I had the plan or came up with the plan, but at some point I made the decision I was just going to go back and spend the holidays in Kansas City. I didn't have a job in Savannah. I didn't have a ton of friends. Like, there wasn't really any reason. I wasn't going to school yet. I was still on the wait list. There wasn't really any reason for me to stay in Savannah. So Adam, my good friend, and our good friend, and another friend from college had flown down to do some sightseeing, and then they were going to help me drive back to Kansas City with the new car that my dad had helped us buy, the Chevy Cobalt. And you talk about growing up fast. So we were driving back, and it's like a 16 to 18 hour drive from Kansas City to Savannah, and we were going to go through the night because there would be less traffic. That was Jeremy and I's trick. And oh my gosh, the other friend, her name was Rachel, God bless her. She went to do her first shift of driving after we ate dinner just north of Nashville, and went to turn on the highway and turned right in front of a car she didn't see, and we got T-boned and totaled Jeremy and I's brand new car. Oh my God. And there's just a couple of things about this. So we're all like 20, 21. I think Adam was 21 and Rachel and I were both still 20. We're not old enough to rent a car. We have my dog with us too, by the way. We have Rex with us. So, and it's like late, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And, oh my gosh, we're in the hotel room and I remember just like being so overwhelmed with everything. Like, A, we had just been in a car accident, but B, how are we going to get back to Kansas City? None of us could afford plane tickets at this point. We weren't old enough to rent a car. We had just totaled Jeremy and I's brain. Like, there was just so much going through my mind, and Jeremy calls. I think Adam answered it. Oh, I should have asked Adam. I think Adam answered it and told Jeremy what had happened, been like, we're all fine, everything's fine. I promise you I'll help take care of her. And Jeremy told me later, and like a couple years later, it took him to tell me this, but he was supposed to like go on a mission that night and they actually held him back from it because he was so worried about me. He told me later, he's like, I think one of the hardest things I learned in that moment was how much you were going to have to handle without me. Like all I wanted to do was be there with you and make sure you were okay. And I couldn't be. Not the crux of a military relationship. And I never thought of it like that in that moment of like, I wish he was here. Like, I never had any anger with him or anything for like not being there. Anyways, but then the insurance company the next day, once business hours opened up, helped us rent a car to get back to Kansas City. We got back to Kansas City. The Chevy Cobalt was totaled. And this is where I realized the lesson of having good car insurance. So Chevrolet at this point had kind of gone, this is when they had tanked, like, would have been 2005. So it was like, my dad had these points, we bought the Chevy, and then all of a sudden Chevy like almost went bankrupt and there was a government bailout, and like like the value of a Chevy at that point, like was almost like half of what it normal was. And then keep in mind, we had bought the car new, so it was already depreciated. So when the insurance settlement first came through, I'm going to make up numbers here, but I just remember like we had paid like $25,000 for the car and had the loan on it for like $20,000 with my dad's credit card points that we were paying off. And they came back with like a compensation check of like $6,000. Like we were about to take this huge hit on the car, and like I just remember being like, A, I can't afford to pay off the loan that I have on it, and B, how can we afford a new car if, anyways, it was so scary. I had heard about this military nonprofit called Military One Source, and I called them to be like, is there anything you guys can do to help me? And they like helped connect me with a lawyer. So I'm back in Kansas City while Jeremy's fighting his first war, literally like fighting an insurance adjustment or settlement and doing all these like really grown up things. On top of that, I had to give back the rental car because you only get it for a certain amount of time, right? And then Jeremy's parents had, I think it was like an old Dodge Caravan, maybe a Chrysler Pacific, the old box minivan that like everybody had in the late 90s, early 2000s, gold. They had like 200,000 miles on it that they let me borrow. And so I don't know. It just was so much. Like I was back in my hometown, but everybody else, all my friends were still in college and doing all these things. I was fighting the insurance company. I did end up getting like a part-time job, like a holiday position working at the Gap here in Kansas City, which I actually loved working at the Gap. And our first married Christmas was spent separated from each other. And Jeremy was like, that was just such a big wake-up call, I think, for both of us of what it was going to be like for him being gone during like huge chunks of time. It was really hard. Financially, it was hard. Kind of learned that the world isn't always fair. I did end up like getting a good settlement check from the insurance company once I like really battled it for quite a while. I mean, I think, and so right around Christmas time, my dad helped me navigate the negotiations. He didn't help pay for it again. He had just already helped us buy a car. I bought another car without Jeremy, a Honda Civic, which we loved that Civic. And I don't know, it worked out. It's just, wow, like welcome to adulthood, right? Like just big things. And my mom helped me drive that car back to Savannah shortly after Christmas. I did find out, the good news was that I had been moved off of the wait list for nursing school. I was going to start that January, which was going to be really good for me. And I kind of think of, Jeremy and I's relationship in stages of deployment. And so that time of like moving down to Savannah and coming back with the Honda was like our first kind of like real phase of adulthood, marriage, so much of it. Gosh, it was a lot. But we were still just so in love, right? Like all the stress and all the hard, I think I was a little too stubborn to admit that maybe we shouldn't have gotten married. I don't know that I ever really felt that way though. Like I still was just so thankful for what we were going to go through. So it was just kind of wild. You just think about moments of growing up and lessons that you've learned, and that was good. And I still am a huge proponent of like having good insurance. And to each their own, right? There's different philosophies like it, but that was such a nightmare for me of just dealing with all that and then just trying to fight it, and it was a lot. But a big year of growth and figuring it out and all the things. And I think there's this part of me that as I'm getting ready to start this new job again, it's been nice to be reminded that I'm going to figure it out. We get so wrapped up in self-doubt sometimes that I do think sometimes it's good to stop and think of the times you figured it out, right? And instead of saying I can't, it's so much better to just say, hey, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to acknowledge that this is going to be hard and I'm going to figure it out. I think that's where I'm going to leave it right now. Next week I'll pick up with him coming home from that first deployment and all those things. So, thanks for tuning in. I hope everybody has a great week. I just want to say thank you again. This really has been so good for my heart to just share these stories and talk about it. And, I keep praying about how to handle the messy years. And anybody that knows me personally knows that there have been some messy years after Jeremy's death, particularly, that I don't know. So much of what I'm talking about right now is Jeremy and I's history and how we came about, because that is a big piece of my story. But it's been a journey, and this emotional awakening that I'm on right now of just really finding my grounding or my purpose again, because it's been so good. And so I just want to say thank you. You are helping me to stay classy and choose love by being supportive of this, and thank you. And I really do hope you have a great week and that you stay classy and choose love. Have a good one.